Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the river of waters, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Verse 1 indicates that the man that does not walk in the way of ungodly sinners shall be blessed. Now, these blessings are not necessarily in the material sense. After all, throughout the last 2,000 years, many a Christian has suffered greatly for their faith. Even in the Old Testament, many of the most righteous men suffered greatly for their faith. Some of the prophets were tortured and killed in response to their ministry. So this blessing is not in the worldly material sense. It is ultimately in our eternal blessing with the Lord. Verse 2 indicates that such men delight themselves in the law of the Lord. This also, of course, includes delighting oneself in the Lord himself. It also indicates meditating on the Lord and his law continually. Now, of course, this does not mean you spend every waking and sleeping moment thinking about God directly, or even anything in the Bible directly. First of all, you cannot really do that while you sleep unless you dream about it. But even apart from that, we do have other things we have to think about from time to time as we actively do things while we are awake. But putting our attention on the things of the Lord is part of being a Christian. Verse 3 specifically compares the believer to a tree that is planted by a river of water, and how fruitful such a tree is. This is an interesting comparison because as Christians, we draw our spiritual nourishment from the Lord. This is both in prayer and in reading the Word of God. We also get a significant portion of our spiritual nourishment through the preaching and teaching of the Word of God that we get in church. This is important to keep in mind because it demonstrates the importance of maintaining church attendance. Yes, you can get a lot of teaching and preaching online, and taking advantage of this is important. However, neglecting church and what you get from that, including the fellowship. In church, you have fellowship with other believers. This is something you cannot have when you are sitting around watching sermons exclusively on YouTube. Furthermore, if you exclude yourself from other believers, it is way too easy to go off the deep end in some areas. Verse 4 compares the ungodly to chaff. Now, chaff would be the dried remains of wheat and other plant material, including other grasses, leaves, and the like. Primarily plant material that is no longer useful, even by the plants themselves. It tends to get blown about by the wind. So, what does this comparison show about the ungodly? First of all, that they are not useful to God, they are essentially waste material. But also, this comparison shows that they are driven around by every wind of what they hear. They have no stability, but are blown about. If they are religious, they're blown about by religious trends. If they are atheistic, they are blown around by pseudoscientific trends that are pushed in the name of the Big Bang to Man mythology. Verse 5 indicates that the ungodly are not going to stand in the day of judgment. They are not going to be successful before God, but they will fall and be judged for their unrighteousness. The simple fact of the matter is that they will fall before God, both physically and spiritually. They will bow before him and recognize him as Lord at that time. Even the most God hating atheist in that day will bow the knee before the Lord and recognize him as Lord, no matter how much they deny the existence of God today. Verse 6 is a final comparison between the way of the righteous and the way of the ungodly. It is abundantly clear that the Lord knows the way of the righteous, along with the fact that the way of the ungodly will indeed one day perish. They may seem to prosper today, with the righteous, that is, those who know the Lord, seeming to have everything go against them, including ridicule, lack of funds, whatever else is involved. But ultimately, the Lord knows the way of the righteous and will see to it that those who truly trust in him will one day be with him, but that the way of the ungodly, no matter how prosperous they may seem today, will ultimately one day perish before the Lord in judgment. The main point of this first psalm is a comparison between those who put their trust in God and the ungodly. Those who trust in the Lord, regardless of their status in this current life, God promises will one day prosper in him in eternity. However, the ungodly are shown that they will eventually fall and be punished for eternity. Their way, regardless of how prosperous it may seem today, will eventually perish in judgment. All we who believe in God will spend eternity with Him, while the ungodly face eternal punishment in hell. This is the destruction of the way of the wicked and the fate that they face. This is where Jesus Christ comes into play, in his death, burial, and resurrection. Because of the fall of Adam, we are all, by default, ungodly, and we all deserve to pay the eternal price of our ungodliness. However, Jesus, being God in the flesh and able to live a sinless life, suffered and died on the cross to pay the penalty for our sin, and then rose again the third day to seal of our pardon, to seal our pardon. Accepting this pardon is simply a matter of believing that Jesus paid the price for our sin on the cross and that God raised him from the dead. From there, it's a matter of repenting of our sin, that is, turning from sin to God, and asking Jesus to save us in acceptance of the pardon that he is offering for our sin. There are no works that we need to do. We do not have to clean up our life first. None of that, because we could not do it. If you've ever tried, you will know. It is simply a matter of asking Jesus to save us in belief. After we are saved, then, over time, he will clean us up. I have seen people who have come to Jesus who, over time, not instantly, but over time, found those sins that they commonly were involved in going away. In many cases, they were, and some of the really bad ones were quite quick. But the Lord, when he gets a hold of the heart of someone, will eventually, over time, clean up their life. This is called the process of sanctification.